Hey everyone, welcome back to the Martingale Emerging Media Minute or Two. This week, we're going to be talking about accessibility of information when it comes to social media and media information in general. Now, with new technology, it may seem like every piece of information you may want is at your fingertips. However, this is not the case for all people who use the internet. Depending on your school's resources or where you live, you may not be able to access the same information as others. Or maybe because of a physical disability or impairment, you might be blind and unable to read news, or you might be deaf and be unable to listen to speeches from presidents or leaders of the CDC, as we're going to talk about with COVID. So it's really important as we focus on how social media has made things way more accessible to consider the fact that it still has a lot of shortcomings. In an article by Wu et al., the authors talk about the influence of COVID on advancing the ability to meet virtually. Now, before the pandemic hit, it was basically impossible to attend a lecture, a seminar, a class, anything if you were not able to go to it. Maybe you could catch a video online afterwards, kind of like a TED Talk, but chances were you were missing the content. There was no way to zoom into your class. And on the other hand, I would like to say that unfortunately, this may mean that snow days are a thing of the past. As long as you still have power, you can pretty much tune in from anywhere. So, with this influx of improvement for Zoom technology, we are able to now attend conferences without ever traveling to the state or attend class if you miss it, like I do when I go to track meets. This is really helpful for people that live in hard-to-reach areas, as well as scholars in other countries. Last week in Dr. Moon's class, we were able to talk about how scholars in other countries, such as African countries where she does most of her work, are unable to get information quickly in order to do their research because of paywalls. Here at LSU, our institution covers much of the paywalls, so you can see how that would be an issue. Now, when you consider the fact that Zoom is how most people are able to attend conferences, that is still a limiting factor. However, it does grant much more ability for people to tune in if they wouldn't be able to get there. This could be because of location, or it could be because they have an illness or some sort of physical impairment where they cannot travel or cannot be exposed to people as the pandemic continues. Beyond just purely accessing the information, it is also important to be able to understand what you are seeing and filter out the misinformation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this was exacerbated as people were given all sorts of false information about medications, quarantine times, all of this stuff. And so in an article by Guess et al., they recommend media literacy interventions, and I think that this could truly be really beneficial because a lot of people have access to the internet, but they're not media scholars. They don't know how to use this technology necessarily to find accurate sources, and maybe they see a tweet and that's all the information they get for the week. Another topic that stood out to me this week was how technology is used and needs to continue to be used in order to make existing content more accessible. Now, this was really highlighted in Shu et al., which talked about how COVID has emphasized that people who are members of the visually impaired community or facing blindness might not be able to access the same content as you. I also think that this extends to deaf communities as well, and this is apparent to me on TikTok especially. Now on TikTok, you now have the option to just hit captions and it will automatically generate for you what you are saying. Now, hopefully you can go back in there and edit it because it messes up names, special brands, things like that. Maybe you mumble, maybe you make a noise or laugh and it picks it up as something. But it does a really good job at starting to make the app more accessible to people who can't hear. I also recently looked at Selma Blair's Instagram account because she's on Dancing with the Stars, and she has visual captions for all of her posts. So when she posts 5 photos, the first one will say Selma wearing a red dress and describe what's happening, and then it continues to in the rest of them. Now, this is super helpful for people who can't necessarily see the image, and While I understand that the same problem is how are they then going to read it, I think that maybe it helps people who are with them to describe it, and that's probably the goal. However, the main point is that social media is still not that accessible for most people. So my challenge for you this week is to go out onto your social media accounts and see what you can do to make it more accessible. I personally forget to put captions on sometimes, so my challenge is to remember to do that. That's all for now. I will see you next week on the Martingale Way More Than an Emerging Minute or Two.